Welcome to Monday Night Live on Inside Texas Football, powered by InsideTexas.com. I've got Ian, Drew, and Eric with me. Ian, we're going to talk a lot to you tonight about the Kansas City Chiefs and your favorite subject, the Oklahoma Sooners. Before we do, though, I'm just curious, Eric, this weekend, did you get to see any monster trucks?
Well, I saw lots of monster trucks, Zombie, Gravedigger. Kid was absolutely devastated that Monster Mutt wasn't there, but we persevered and got through it. It was a loud time.
Did he have the headset?
Oh, of course, yeah, he has that, and we have like the ones you'd wear at a gun range or something. Yeah, it was
yeah, child-sized gun range.
It's such a mess getting in because they have three different things going on. They have a card show.
Right.
And then as we're leaving, everybody's showing up for Cat Williams.
Right.
So you have card show people, monster truck people, and Cat Williams people.
Hold on. This is all in the same venue?
All in the same area. Yeah, coming out of the same parking lot. It's a train wreck. And then you've got all the disorganized security and all that you'd expect. So once a year, man, he's 6. I think you probably age out of monster trucks at 6.5, I hope.
I don't know. Ian's still into it. Who's your favorite monster truck, Ian?
The one from Cars 2, probably.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to throw you off base there. Drew, how's Houston?
Houston's pleasant, man. It's prime time right now. Prime time weather, prime time recruiting.
This is like the sweet spot for Houston right now, like early.
There's no other place you'd rather be.
Oh yeah,
we don't be in Dallas. That's for sure.
It is. Hey, it's nice. We took the golf cart. We got a burnt orange golf cart, of course, because we have a neighborhood full of Aggies and even some LSU people. So we took a 30-minute golf cart ride through the neighborhood. It's perfect weather. You got to do it when you can.
It's like
twice a year.
Doing laps around the block,
yeah.
Just blaring Eyes of Texas.
Yep.
All right.
Kid yelling, hook 'em horns.
That's amazing. Well, Drew went ahead and stole the lead for me. Talked a little bit about recruiting. I want to talk to you, Eric, because Justin wrote today about 3 out-of-state prospects that could significantly impact the roster in 26. And specifically who I'm talking about is Mark Bowman, Anthony Davis, and James Johnson. And I'm wondering, just with those 3, we'll start with Bowman, which is a position of need at tight end. But can you kind of fill us in a little bit about why he's so important to this class?
Yeah, well, Bowman's a tight end, and there aren't a lot of tight end offers out. He's a West Coast tight end. Mark Bowman is. He came from transfer from Colorado, so he knows Gunnar Helm. Kind of grew up, I guess, in the same sort of circles, going to camps. Despite the age difference, they know each other a little bit. So he's at Mater Dei, national title, well, I guess you could say national title for them. They're always in Kentucky,
yeah, sure.
Top school in the country. And he reclassified. He was 2027, reclassified to 2026. I saw him on the camp circuit last year. He's definitely a coordinated athlete, more of on the receiving side of the tight end, more so than blocker. But, yeah, very talented kid. I'm sure Texas will get a visit from him. I need to catch up, actually. I know Justin did, but I want to see him on the camp circuit again. He always profiled to me like a kid that would really like UT, spoke really high of him. Says that Sark has a great reputation out his way. So I think Texas definitely has his attention.
And then moving out to Florida, we've got James Johnson, defensive line, obviously always a position of need.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to, they got to load up on GL once again, just like last cycle. I think On3's rankings came out today that with positional rankings, Texas had 2 of the top 5 edges, 2 of the top 7 defensive tackles. That's the kind of haul they're going to need year in and year out. In years past, Texas was able to recruit skill players at a pretty high level. Obviously, they've been doing well with quarterbacks, but you got to win the bigs. That's kind of where the difference lies between some of these teams that are pretenders and actual contenders. So they're going to keep pounding Florida, Georgia, Louisiana kid, Mississippi kid just came back on the market. I need to check in with him that decommitted from LSU. So they'll hit DL really hard, but there's going to be a lot of plot twists on that. I have no clue who's going to end up in the class, especially a defensive tackle.
Right.
Edge feel pretty good about Jamarian Carlton, but it's going to be a long cycle to go, and I think there's going to be some plot twists like we saw last June with Sharma and Myron Charles, and then of course late with Justice Terry. It's just going to be if Texas is motivated to land these guys, they're going to get what they need.
And last, just kind of rounding it out a little bit, was Anthony Davis from Georgia. Now, he doesn't currently have a visit scheduled, but he seems to be very high on Nansen, which is good.
Yeah, I believe he visited for the Kentucky game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think he visited in the past for the Kentucky game. I might be wrong on that, but I'm probably not. He's a off the ball, or he's a kind of an edge linebacker. He's not really playing off ball, which makes it harder for me to evaluate. Coaches are going to have to really dig into the tape, get the kid on the chalkboard, and get him talking about football, because there's not going to be the video evidence that you want with some of these other kids playing off ball. Sometimes you get a false read on them because it's a lot easier to play off the edge, but he's definitely got good length and athleticism, and he does like Texas.
It's obviously these are things that we're going to be tracking throughout the off season. I guess there is no off season anymore. Certainly not with us. Ian, going to you. This is something we're going to talk about, two things that you've written about here pretty recently. And I would love for Drew and Eric to jump in, but I want to start with the Kansas City Chiefs, specifically their offense, and what are the similarities that you're noticing between them, what they're doing, what Andy Reid is doing, and what Sark has been up to?
They're very similar in being heavily RPO based. Well, definitely more than your typical pro style offense, at least. It's not like the veer and shoot or some super spread scheme, but there's certainly a lot of RPOs in what the Chiefs are doing. It's pretty remarkable watching how many plays they run that are RPOs, or at least packaged like RPOs. And then certainly Sark uses those a lot as well. Some of the designs you can tell are even the same, like the Ezekiel's wheel I've talked about, where they have a guy run a wheel route at the snap and another guy run a skinny post, another guy run a flat route, and then they're running like a zone read and having the quarterback read all that. I don't know if that originated with Andy Reid, but he was certainly one of the early guys running that scheme in the NFL level. And Sark has taken that as a pretty big part of his offense. And then I think they're both really big into elaborate play designs to get the ball to their key players.
Right.
So like Mahomes is a maestro. He gets the ball out so fast and he can read a lot, but they have a lot of stuff where he's making a very quick read and just getting the ball out. And then Xavier Worthy is doing this, so you're worried about it. And Juju Smith-Schuster, somebody that picked up off the waiver wire, is wide open, or they're doing something else. And then Travis Kelce is doing his voodoo in the middle of the field and he's somehow wide open. Sark is similar in that he will design elaborate motions and movement all to create a quick, simple read where it's like, if we do this and we do this and we do this, then they're going to do this, and then this guy should be wide open, and you just see it and you throw it, and that's it.
I'm just imagining you at a whiteboard, literally with that same dialogue.
It would be difficult even on a whiteboard to explain it in a way that was good for this medium. But Sark is a genius at it. Reid is a genius at it. Lincoln Riley was really good at this. They understand the rules of defense and the rules that defenders are thinking through when they're watching the play develop. And so if we do this, and Drew Kelson knows what I'm talking about, the linebacker is going to say, oh, if they do this, then I got to respond here. And then they bend those rules against them to get somebody open. Sark, Andy Reid will do it for kind of small potato stuff. He's happy to draw up a million ways to dink and dunk down the field because he has Patrick Mahomes and they can actually pull it off. Sark, that doesn't really work so well in college. You're just college kids are not proficient enough. But Sark will still do it to draw up stuff like at the intermediate level. Obviously, for Quinn, he was very good at doing that. And I would say getting guys open deep as well, even though that didn't always materialize.
I want to talk a little bit. I want to get your guys' thoughts on the game just in general. But before we do, I would really like to hear from one of our sponsors tonight, and that's Luxe Kitchen.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
Drew, who do you have in this game on Sunday?
It's tough. I haven't picked a side yet. I expect a defensive battle, though. Is kind of where I'm leaning on. So the fact that I do expect this to be a defensive game, I mean, it really puts any team really with an opportunity to be able to do something with it. So I think the Chiefs have one of the best defenses in the NFL. It's, everyone talks Mahomes, but no one is really paying attention to the dominance and consistency that they play with, whether the offense is clicking or not. And then you blink and you look up and you're like, how did they make it this far? And you're looking at their roster and you're like, well, they had a rookie, Xavier Worthy. They've had Juju Smith-Schuster. He's like, how did he do it? Kelsey's not the same, and nobody's looking at the other side of the ball. So I do feel as though, we'll get a really good battle from a defensive standpoint, barring all the different things that can be schemed up, of course, by Andy Reid with chunk plays. But, I do think it'll be a defensive game, but if I had to choose a side, I'd probably choose the Chiefs because I do think their defense is elite and truly one of the best in the league that really no one cares or really talks about as often as I think they should when it talks about the success of the Chiefs.
Only a former linebacker safety would sit here and say the Chiefs are going to win because of their defense. I mean, their defense is great. Don't get me wrong. It's a big part of the deal. They have this other component, though, that tends to produce winning outcomes. Named Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I mean, but when you see Patrick Mahomes do it with multiple different types of players, different things, I mean, when you're talking about conceptually comparison to Texas football, Pat Mahomes, you think he's hitting people over the top with these deep balls. Is he capable? Yes. But that's not where things are done. He takes the yards and the players that are open within the offense. That's why you'll see a mixture of different backs out of the backfield, a mixture of different receivers. You don't know where exactly he's going to go or who's going to hit you or who he's going to hit you with, especially this season. I just think relative to the credit Pat Mahomes gets in his greatness of distributing the ball, their defense is a key component of that. So I just think it's understated, and it'll continue to be, and I think they're fine with that. But it's understated relative to how great Pat Mahomes is and how they get here for the last few years, for sure.
It's the Brady Belichick thing again. It's the same formula. It's like Brady, you make something work here, and the other team's not going to get away from us, and we'll have the advantage in the fourth quarter in a tight game because our quarterback's going to make all the right decisions.
Now, Eric, you're a big Philly guy. I mean, you just love pretty much everything about that town. Are you? How much money do you have on the Eagles?
None. My love for Philly extends and ends to Rocky. That's about it. Being a Niner fan, obviously, it would like you, Pat. I do like Pat. I think Pat's a great dude. I think he's kept himself despite being one of the most high-profile athletes in the country. And I know, he's got a baddie wife and all that, all the other stuff going around him. I think he's kind of kept to who he is. So I like that. Loved the kid in high school. But, I'm a Niner fan, so I've seen him rip our heart out, in 2 Super Bowls, just with, it looked like the Niners had that game going in the final minutes. So I think that's what's going to happen again. I'm curious to see how the Chiefs do against Barkley. I'm a huge Charles Omenihu fan. I love Charles as a person. I love to see him to be able to celebrate a Super Bowl on the field. But I just want a competitive game. It's just I'm not the biggest NFL guy anymore. I try to watch it, but football dominates my life so much that I have to spend some time with the family on Sundays. But I have been able to watch a little bit of the playoffs, and I got to go with the Chiefs.
All right. So it's monster trucks and Viking shows. That's how we come down from football.
Yep.
All right. Sweet. Do you see this thing being close, Ian?
It usually is. I don't really understand why the Eagles are considered to be a good match for the Chiefs. I'm like Eric. Sundays are usually, if it's football focused, it's breaking down the game the day before. So I haven't kept up quite as well with the NFL this season, but I feel like we do this every game. It's like Mahomes and the Chiefs win.
Yeah.
And then the next game they play some good team, and it's like, well, the Ravens are favored by 2.5, or the Bills are favored by 3 at home, or the Eagles are. And I'm just like, what?
Fair.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm the same way. I haven't followed NFL enough to get the contrarian. And if Ian can't get aboard the contrarian take, then I'm not sure who can. I had people. I saw people picking the Texans, and I'm like, I've watched enough of the Texans to not agree with that at all. I don't know. When in doubt, bet on Pat. That's I think that's the safest bet right now.
One of the issues in which Ian loves to be contrarian is for our neighbors to the north, the University of Oklahoma. You're writing about them now, Ian. So I would just love to, maybe you had a nice article on the board today at InsideTexas.com. Can you bring the people up to speed on, let's just start with your obsession. Where did this come from?
The first 5 years that I watched the Cotton Bowl as a young Texas fan were 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and 2004.
Yeah, all right.
And I remember going into the 2000 game as was I like a freshman in high school, I think. And I had just become a Texas fan, and I hadn't watched that game on television yet because my family are not sports people. So this was all a private passion. And I was like, whatever, this game, the A&M game at the end will be the real test. And this guy looked at me and he was like, if you don't think this is a big game, you don't know anything about college football, which was true. And I found out the hard way in the 63-14 bludgeoning that followed. So, I mean, I don't know how you can be a Texas fan and not be pretty invested in the rivalry.
Well, with that investment, what are you seeing? How is Oklahoma handling their offseason?
It's not been great. I actually have a cold. It's not a problem. It began with them looking to replace their offensive coordinator after having the worst offensive season since probably Blake in the 90s. I don't even remember those games. Obviously, maybe Drew or Eric remembers better.
Yeah, I remember they were terrible teams.
So they went and got a new offensive coordinator, and they got one that had a quarterback attached to him, John Mateer, so they could get 2 birds with 1 stone. They had already thrown their 5-star savior, Jackson Arnold, under the bus early in the year, and so they needed a new solution there. And then after successfully pulling off their second losing season in 3 under Venables with the loss to Navy in the bowl game, surprisingly, their hand-picked Brand Venables protege defensive coordinator bailed to become a defensive coordinator at West Virginia so that he could get away from Brent Venables. And so that occupied a lot of mental space in Oklahoma's fans' minds and in their administration and coaching staff. Shortly after this, they allowed themselves to be used by Jim Knowles to create a bidding war that ended with him going to Penn State for $3.1 million a year. Oklahoma fans were told to believe that the cure for a team with a really good defensive coordinator and a good developing defense was to make him do all the things he's terrible at and just bring somebody else in to coordinate the defense entirely. And then that the former guy wouldn't just meddle and drive him nuts. This was proposed as a good solution. But Jim Knowles apparently didn't accept it. So they hired the guy that Texas just dropped 300 rushing yards on and a young up-and-coming linebacker coach that nobody's ever heard of before. And that's been the Sooner coaching carousel. Then there's the transfer portal, where they have been mining the ranks of FCS teams to find impact skill talent to put around John Mateer.
I want to carry on with this because you really caught your stride, and I hate to do this, but we need to hear
Caught your stride. Oh my god.
we need to hear from Dave.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kipling on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
So, Ian, this is the question. It's the question that by the way, a lot of fans of you in the chat. I don't know how you do that. It's just dumbfounding to me. But here we go. Who replaces Brett Venables? Who do you think is? Because I mean, that seems to be the foregone conclusion, right?
Well, I'm starting to interpret a lot of the moves up in Oklahoma as the attempts to extend the Brent Venables saga as long as possible by athletic director Joe Castiglione. Because the minute that Brent Venables has to go and be fired, the odds of Castiglione being allowed to choose his successor are not very good. So I think he's fighting to because the narratives that have been coming out of Oklahoma are pretty much anything to extend. Like they literally extended Brent Venables after winning 10 games, even though he lost Bedlam in the last time the game was going to be played and got knocked out of the Big 12 championship game in a year when the Big 12 was rank. Okay. They extend Venables so that because they knew the year one in SEC would be bad and that everybody would want to fire him. So they made that too expensive with the extension. It's all guaranteed money. And at first they were like, oh, it's just 2 years. It's okay. If we have to do something, we'll do something. And then when they're terrible, it's like, well, we can't really do anything because that money's all guaranteed. And the previous money was guaranteed. Okay. Then they're like, we're going to hire a general manager and we're going to moneyball college football. And the general manager will have large power and oversight, and Venables can focus on coaching, and the general manager will navigate us through this new era. I was like, who's the new general manager? That's top men. They're coming. It's going to be great, right? And then like a week later, actually, we're going to hire Jim Knowles. We're going to have the best defensive coordinator in the country, and that'll free up Brent Venables to be a master CEO over the overall Oklahoma operation. Because the reason he wasn't doing that before is because he had to be too busy coaching the defense. It's not because he has zero skill set or inclination for it, because he was too busy, right? Okay. Then that falls through, and so we're still waiting on the general manager to come. But all these narratives and spin that come out, and Castiglione is in tight with all the media in Oklahoma. It just smells like a bureaucrat that is clinging to life with all he has, because he doesn't want to get fired from that job.
Is he all out of capital? Because I mean, the circumstances of where he went with Brent Venables, you would think he would be at least somewhat sympathetic after all he's done there. They didn't really have a whole lot of candidates at that time. When Lincoln Riley dropped a bomb on them, sort of like Luca did, or like the Mavericks GM did the other day. It came out of nowhere. People, I don't know what they were supposed to do at that point. And I thought the extension was more a name only. Did that really make it that much tougher for them to fire him?
Well, it's 2 more years of guaranteed money, so it's like $14 million additional to the 20 or whatever it already was.
This has to be his last year, and then they've got to go after Dillingham or somebody like that.
They also, I mean, it's Oklahoma's nature in general as an institution, Castiglione or not, to be extremely conservative in moments of chaos and try to cling to whatever was working before. So that's not a Castiglione thing. But they had Dan Lanning on the line, and they went for Brent Venables. He was like an afterthought. It's like, if Brent Venables doesn't work out, then we'll go to Dan Lanning. And it shows the comfortable, familiar face and the let's get as many of Bob Stoops people together again, even though we don't have Bob anymore, and hope that we can keep this going. So I don't know if his capital, like, he's such an easy person to blame for everything, right? Like, even you're not going to blame Tim Headington for all these decisions because he's the one writing the checks. So it's going to be the bureaucrat that gets it.
We'll see. It's going to come to a head in about a year because I don't see Venables making it after this season. Just the infrastructure is not in place on the offensive side.
It's terrible. It's unbelievable how you look at, like, the tight end roster for this coming year. They brought in an FCS guy that spent 4 years at Kansas and caught one ball as a Jayhawk tight end. And the one ball he caught was a 20-yard touchdown against Oklahoma.
So it's got a good record. Yeah, that's how you do it.
They got this other tight end from Louisiana Tech. And I had to go to Louisiana Tech's roster page because he wasn't even the starter at Louisiana Tech. So I was like, wait, who is this guy? And it turns out that he was listed as a commit on our On3 page, but he's a preferred walk-on. There's great consternation in Oklahoma because their veer and shoot offensive guy, Joe John Finley, is the tight ends coach. And their message board recruitniks have been arguing for years that he's like complete dead space, doesn't recruit worth anything. And now they have like one of the worst looking tight end rosters in the country coming into this next season. When this used to be like Oklahoma was like Mark Andrews,
Calcaterra,
or like the fullback hybrid guys like Dimitri Flowers, Jeremiah Hall, Braden Willis.
Yep.
Going way back, like Drew probably remembers the guys they had back in the day. I'm sure they had some NFL dudes in the backfield next to their running backs.
Yeah.
Jermaine Gresham. Yeah.
Joe John Finley, baby.
The man in question, Joe John Finley. Yeah. It's a delightful mess.
I do think Ian is the best part about this is we've been through these transitions, but there's so many different angles that just work to a disadvantage for them. The portal is not the environment you want to be in and not have some level of stability or belief within your program. But Ian sees this stuff coming from a mile away. So this is probably the first time, and I mean, I've been playing against, when I started watching Texas play, it was late 90s, but decided to come to Texas and believe Texas was a great place for me in 2002, 2003. I've seen every OU game. I've seen this rivalry. I've gotten to feel what it's like. But this is the first time we actually get to look at Oklahoma and see every move in the same way we've kind of felt about A&M. It's just with every move, whether they hold on to a coach or whether they plan to get rid of a coach, there's all these different dynamics that it just feels good from a third party outside looking in. Just like, man, if this was a move that would make us nervous, we'd be the first one to get nervous. Mm-hmm. So we're also the first ones to criticize because we see it not going in a direction that really would give us something to think about. They lost all that momentum last year.
They could have got 4 starters, maybe 3 starters on offense for the price of Dominic Williams, a guy that was, pretty good, but not. That's just a total misallocation of money. And I laughed when it happened. OU fans were all in my mentions. They haven't been in my mentions since. You could just see the mismanagement from a mile away. And then, of course, he messed up the quarterback situation. So they have nothing. They have no reason to be excited right now. I know they're trying to talk themselves into it. That's the nature of sports and life in general. It's the hope that kills you. But it's off season, so they're going to build it back up and learn a hard lesson in September and October.
You find out when your program is like always patching leaks that you become like a Murphy's Law program, or just something always comes up that goes wrong. Like we've seen it at Texas a million times, right? Paul always says, virtuous cycles and vicious cycles. Like when they hired Brent Venables, I identified, hey, their previous defensive coordinator didn't believe in recruiting big defensive tackles. So now they have to like overhaul their roster to execute Venable's vision and get the most scarce and rare types of players to do it.
Yep.
To their credit, they did a great job of making it work with whatever they could find. And they're finally on a much better track now. They overpaid for Demonic Williams. That probably helped. Found some IMG guys, etc. But meanwhile, while they're doing that, they don't have any wide receivers. They don't have any tight ends. Their pipeline of NFL offensive tackles went dry, and they're trying to replenish it. They're replacing assistant coaches all the time. The former Oklahoma linebacker they made general manager is writing a goodbye letter to Oklahoma because he's been sacked. You know, that's just what happens when you don't have like stability and top-down direction, and you're just running around bailing water out. You know, we've seen it. We've seen it so many times, like Drew said.
I think it's important for the people to know at home that Ian did text me before the show and specifically wanted to talk about this subject. So you could see it's something that he is clearly personally passionate about. But I have to tell you that knowing Ian as I have now, this is just really scratching the surface. So if there is any more of this type of content that you enjoy about Ian talking about the University of Oklahoma, please join us at InsideTexas.com. We'll give you a full week for just $1 American dollar. So come check us out. We'd really appreciate it if you did that. And hey, thanks for joining us this evening.